Okay, so first of all, thank you very much, Nele, for inviting me, for creating this space and this opportunity to share my research. I'm very happy to be here because it's a great opportunity for the artist collective that I work with to progress and develop. So I was very lucky and very happy to finally get a grant. So here I am. So thank you very much. And thank you all for being here. So the artist collective is EarthZone Productions, and it's like an artistic and scientific research team of people with differing roles. And my research is scientifically into self-destructive stars. So my PhD is about self-destructive female icons, or the constructed image of them, or images of them. And this research is into self-destructive stars in terms of the supernova. I just like that link, and I just thought, I have to do this. I don't want anyone else to find that. I want to do this. So I managed to work out a concept for that. And but originally, my PhD started as an artistic practice, a photographic series and video series. I just called it Rock Chick at the beginning because I just thought it was this kind of, why are they all blonde? Why are they sort of like, you know, having this kind of imagery? And I just found it really fascinating. So I would write concepts before I would do the photo shoots. And as I was researching the images and trying to find who are these women who are self-destructive, I kind of thought, oh, maybe this would be a good idea for a PhD, but you can see the date on the last picture. That's when it all started, like really a long time ago. So I was looking also into fairy tales and poetry and mythology as well. So this one is of the sirens, as it states there, and how they were these musicians, this girl band that would lure sailors to their deaths with their beautiful singing. And yeah, so there are other pictures, but I just gave a couple of examples. So eventually, as my PhD developed, the research, I was looking further into fairy tales. I knew I wanted to look into myths and fairy tales, and one of the fairy tales was by Hans Christian Andersen, and the fairy tale The Red Shoes. And so this was something that I did, and so you're probably thinking, how does that connect? Well, two of the images, I talk about the constructed image because of course I would say self-destructive female icons, but it is really about the constructed photographic image of them. It's about the male gaze, and you know, so then as I'm talking about this, you will see that there are some links in the project that I'm doing with Katrien and the other team members. So two of the icons I'm analysing are, amongst others, are Amy Winehouse and Whitney Houston. And found it very interesting how Amy Winehouse always wore ballet shoes. And there was an incident where she had blood all over her ballet shoes, and it was just such a, you know, so I tried to link these images to fairy tales, mythology, and principally to the image of Venus. But for this particular image, it was interesting to link that to the fairy tale rather than the film, because in the end, the girl dances out of control. And the only way to stop the dancing was to chop off her feet, you know? And there was always this cautionary tale, which you can see travels through time and space. So these women are always held up as an example of what not to do if you break away from the patriarchal norm and try to deconstruct it and create your own image. And that's why it kind of is a bit about the power of the camera. So this was the reason why I showed this was because of how my research began to influence my photographic artworks. So before it was the artworks feeding into my PhD, but now it's like you can see how my research then, you know, fed back into what I was doing artistically. And again, we have my research. So I have a chapter, an excerpt on the shadow of the imago. So it is here a little bit. Another one of the icons is Edie Sedgwick. So it's a little bit Edie Sedgwick, Andy Warhol kind of relationship. Is a bit of the narcissist and the empath, but it's also about the power of the mirror. And so in this performance, the reflection speaks back to the beholder and takes control, and then somehow leads to this self-destruction, this kind of, you know, archetypal tale. And so that's what that performance was about. And so then again, from my research, it fed then into my artistic practice. So for this performance, it's kind of key, and it begins to link a little bit more closely with what's going on at ARIA. So in 2020, I started working with an artist called Christopher Stefan, and I asked him to build a time machine for me, and he agreed. And this is the time machine. It's a hypercube, which is a cube within a cube, and it was an installation, an art in public space in Corinthia. And so I did a performance with it. And so in this performance, I play an angel from timelessness and eternity, and I bring the people timelessness. And but as I land from Earth, I begin to interact with the audience and you know, do a little bit of spiritism, you know, and sort of like really bad psychic readings, but it's like with the audience and invite them up, and, you know, some of them were right, actually. It's just, was amazing. So, so in this picture, you see I'm in my time machine and I'm returning to my planet. So part of this performance, I created a big poster of archetypes. So what I included was some of these posters, which you probably know from the, you know, when they had all the freak shows and they would say, roll up, and come and see the lady with 4 legs or the man with 2 heads. And so I had that in the performance as part of the show, and but created new archetypes. So there's Idol Girl, she worships herself alive, you know, they always had this word alive on there. And then the Tin Man, Rocking Nowhere Lady, she lives in the past, so she's going back and forth, and she's just got her head in the clouds. And then the Man Child. And in the middle, then, it's not really properly done. You've got the Tetramorph. So actually, if I just go back, I knew I would forget this, but here you see the mask that I'm wearing is based on the Tetramorph, which is those 4 creatures of the 4 corners of the earth. It's a Babylonian symbol, but you'll see them on many churches, which is the lion, the eagle, the angel, and the bull. So I've got, so Christopher created this mask for me. So I've got the lion, the angel, and the eagle, and the bulls, like that. And there you have, so I always like to point to the screen, but there you have they're supposed to be winged, but the painter forgot to do the wings. You see those archetypes on tarot cards, and you see them. They're also the signs of the zodiac, like Taurus, Leo, Taurus the bull, Leo the lion, Aquarius the person, angel, and Scorpio the eagle. And this was quite an interesting thing for me. That actually was in the Bible, in Ezekiel, and you had these creatures. I think they had four faces. I think they had these four faces, and they were like before the throne of God and cycling back and forth. So I think one of the pictures that is in the advert has me with these two reels, film reels, which is sort of representing some sort of time, or not linear time, but circular time, but it was based on those angels. So which leads me to when I saw the advert for the summer university, I was like, what's this? I've got to do this. I've got to go. I've never done one before, but please let me be there. So I really, made sure I got here. And I really was not disappointed. And I was really, it was such a feast. I mean, I'm really not just saying that. It was an amazing summer school, summer university. It was so packed, and I could just relate so much to what, you could see from my previous works. And then it fed a lot into what we're about to do and what we want to do. And it really gave me a lot of ideas. And, so therefore, the project that Katrien, I've been asking her for many years, can you come onto this project with me? We want to build a time machine and take it to Africa. Well, we didn't want to take it to Africa, but I just wanted to build an interactive time machine. That's all I knew. And I knew that I needed a scientist, and Katrien was the one because she's also an artist. So it took a few years, but one day she said yes, which was brilliant. So why am I back again? So what I learned from this summer university was this wonderful power. I mean, because I'm studying images, and then it was like the power of the original cameras, the first projectors and the screens, and the magic lantern and the panorama, and how it was used in colonialism. I was just really blown away by that, because of course it works, and of course it was, a really interesting thing for me to learn and to absorb. And I just, I think a few months later I wrote to Nelle and said, please, can we collaborate in some way, to work and do some more research here in Antwerp. So I just kind of landed now, but, it would be great to learn more and to work with more of you in the future, or to collaborate, or just to talk more about what you're doing here, because it's not really a research that's known so much in Austria. If you talk about media archaeology, maybe there are media archaeologies, but this particular one that you're doing here is absolutely fascinating. And the magic lantern, magic, I love magic, and I love the idea of what you're doing. And so this fed into what I'm going to do, what I want to do. So there are other members of the team that are going to be doing workshops. Katrien will talk about hers. There will be a drumming workshop, for example, workshops on storytelling, on African cosmology, or experts who know about the cosmologies of their areas in wherever they are in Africa. It was originally going to be West Africa, like Ghana, Nigeria, but being here, with the Congo, I've just changed it to, African cosmology rather than just West African cosmology, and also there's South Africans here. And so I wanted to do some research on a one-woman show, working with the images that were captured by the magic lantern, or even before, because there were paintings, weren't they? And they were either projected or painted directly onto the panorama, correct me if I'm wrong there. So I want to work with these images and put them in the performance, but also to, do a bit of reclaiming, because this is one of this one here was the one that's just like really, like, you get a big lump in your throat when you see that, and you just think it would be so good to just give them a voice. So what I want to do, if I can manage to come back again, is I connected with a community of a Congolese community, and would like to interview, not just Congolese women, but African women, and you know, talk to them about their experiences or what they feel about that, and use these as voiceovers in the performance. So, but I just put myself there as a little kid, and I just thought, oh, well, that could have been me. There's not that much time. I'm much older than all of you, but there's not that much time difference between those. That picture's taken by my mother. My mother took a lot of pictures of us as we were children. So this is really from my mum's loving gaze. And this one there, you know, so again, so if we go back a little bit into, so before I show you my last slide, you know, some, what I'd like to do in the performance is, again, I like audience interactive. I like the audience to participate, and that there could be some kind of healing of the images. So I was recently on a Zoom, I'm part of these consortiums, and they talk about their research. So there was one academic called Dee Wang, and she submitted her paper and we could read it and give her some feedback. And she was talking about visual prescription in the Jung dynasty, and basically expectant mothers were given pictures and images as part of their nurturing for the baby. So the carp was one. That if you looked at the carp, if you looked at these images, it would be good for the gestation period of the child. You should also eat the carp. And there were also other images that they should look at, like if dogs running or horses running, to give you a strong baby and things like that. So I thought this is good to share with you, because then it made me think that we could also have the audience come and heal the images during the performance, some sorts of rituals or something like that. So I think that's more or less what I wanted to share with you now. So there's a lot more to do. There's a lot more research to do. I would also like to have some more photographs that I would like to take of contemporary women, so that it's really a reclaiming. So thank you.
Thank you. So I think we'll speak more about the actual time machine, because now you haven't yet explained how you envision the time machine. So maybe before we do that, I'll talk about my parts, and then we'll have a talk all together about the time machine.
It has changed over the years.
Exactly.
It's not a fixed one, but there are possibilities. It all depends on the funding, doesn't it?
That's right. Yes. So I'll go to this one. Is it working for the? Yeah, super. Thank you. Okay, so also thank you very much for having us here. It's wonderful to share this, because we really want to inform people about what we're doing, and also I think there's a possibility for collaborations as well. So Helena already introduced how she came to the time machine, and I see it as my task now to link the words of cosmology and the self-destructive stars, which for Helena started as the female icons, but there's no, it's not a coincidence that we use the word star for someone who's really visible and famous. And therefore, if we talk about self-destructive stars, stars that also live fast, die young, which is often the case for these self-destructive icons, not only female, that's what in astrophysics we call a supernova. So I'll talk about the supernova, the phenomenon of the supernova, about cosmology, what it is, and then because our project has a title African Cosmology, we want to bring in the perceptions of our place in the universe that come from different cultures, specifically Africa, because we all come from Africa. And we all come from the same supernova more than 5 billion years ago. All of the elements that we have in our bodies were produced by a star that went supernova a long time ago. And regardless of our convictions, ethnicity, whatever distinctions you might see, we come from the same supernova. And that's a little bit also the back thought of the project. And then I'll talk a bit about my work and how that can connect to this project. So the supernova, I was looking for an animated GIF of a supernova, but basically nova means new in Latin, and it's a star that was seen for the first time, that was seen as a new star. But what is a supernova? A supernova is a star that at the end of its life explodes. And this is only happening for very big stars that have a lot of mass. Our own sun is a star, and our own sun is a very average star. Our sun is halfway its life. It will also end at some point, but it will never become a supernova. To become a supernova, you have to be at least 8 or even 10 or 20 times heavier than the sun to be more massive. And these are stars that at the end of their life, when they cannot carry the gravity's weight anymore or fight against it by producing new elements, because that's what stars do, they will implode and explode, and they will go supernova. And this happens regularly. That's to say, not so regularly on human time perception frames, but we do see now quite a lot of supernovas, and more often we see the remnants of them. And so what you see here is the center of this is called the Cat's Eye Nebula. You can see why, maybe, but also what you see is what remains after such a big star explodes and expels everything it has made in the course of its life at the speeds that are close to the speed of light into the cosmos, and gives it back to the cosmos to create new stars eventually after millions or billions of years. So this continuous cosmic recycling is happening thanks to the supernovas. And yeah, stars are factories of elements, so we are also, the elements in our bodies are a product of the stars. So cosmology, because what is cosmology? Tomorrow I'm going to teach a class on cosmology to the physics students. And what I'll say is that this is how we explain the universe and its history, how it started, where it's going, maybe how it ends. And it comes down to also what is our place in it. And of course, we have our scientific view on this based on what we observe from Earth. We can see stars, we can see faraway galaxies more and more as technology evolves. Whenever we look at the stars, like this image, you look into the past. So time is extremely relative. We have our human way of measuring time, but each of the stars in this image is at a different distance. It's started emitting its light that reaches us today at a different time. So you are always looking into the past and into different pasts, depending on where you're looking, what star you are gazing at. And so there's actually, there's never this is now in the cosmos. We can never make a picture of this is now. We can only say this is now as we see it. And cosmology tries to explain what we see and what is our place in all of this and how it started. And you have beautiful stories from different cultures, and Africa is particularly rich in this area, but actually all over the world you have histories of how did all of this start, usually with deities and very beautiful stories and illustrations. And I've always been fascinated by these as well. If you look at, the images that you find, this is from ancient Egypt. These are also visual prescriptions on how to relate to the cosmos and when to do what. And the modern day horoscopes are also, could be framed in this way. Some of these explanations were more like stories, others were based on observations and predictions, so with a scientific method. And for a long time, these two were very intertwined also. The astronomers 4 centuries ago were also astrologers, and they were hired to predict when to go to war and when to do stuff. Just like now you have these calendars saying when you can cut your hair. But now these have gone very separate ways, because now we say, okay, for some research we follow, well, for research we follow the scientific methods. We have our models, and if the models fit with what we see, it's fine, we can keep the models, but they stay models. So even the cosmology that we have scientifically nowadays, it's just a model. The Big Bang is a model. And then throughout the centuries, you had scientists like Galileo, Newton, Copernicus, who were actually basing many of their findings on Arab astronomers, Al-Khwarizmi, Al-Battani, and so etc. So and also in Africa, you had ancient. You have ancient libraries which have books that predate these books, all based on observations. And it's interesting to look at the different cultures in Africa. Here you see, a cosmology that is from the Yoruba. Oppositional complementarity in the cosmos. You see the male sky, the female earth. Also, like in Helena's presentation, you have these 4 cardinal directions. This is something that you see in all cultures throughout human history. This is another book that I made a picture of this morning in my library, The African Cosmology of the Bantu Congo, which is not only explaining where does it all come from, but also how should we live? How do we structure our lives? And then here, this is an image that is an image of the cosmic web, which is how we now see the cosmos, or how we, from our current observations, think the cosmos is structured. You have this web of matter. Actually, our place, I couldn't say where we are, but you see this kind of in all directions, you see something like a big web of matter. And I won't have time to give an astrophysics course, but we are circling one star, which is one star out of 200 billion stars in a galaxy. And all these galaxies form clusters, and all these clusters form superclusters, and superclusters are just the pink color that you see here. So this is a web of all superclusters, and each of these galaxies in these superclusters contains hundreds of billions of stars. So if you look at this, this is really mind-boggling, equally mind-boggling as all of the stories that have been made. And in my opinion, they should all be seen next to each other and considered in equal ways, because we are trying to make sense of stuff. So my own research is on sounds of stars. And what you hear here are personified stars. So what we have done is taken the light of stars, analyzed it, and turned it back into sound. But these are the actual sound qualities of the stars. The real timbre, just like the piano has and record these with the lights. I can explain a bit more about it if you want. But basically, we use the lights and then turn it back into sound. So that's what my research is about. And my own interest is to on the one hand, from these sounds, we can learn a lot about how these stars, which are the building blocks of the cosmos, are built, stars that might go supernova or not. And also, since you could hear it, I'm interested in doing astronomy in a multi-sensory way, not only seeing, looking at a screen, seeing a star, but also, experiencing the star through, for example, sounds. And for this, we use telescopes all over the Earth. And as I was going through my career of the scientist, I traveled and I was lucky to see the sky from really mind-boggling observatories where you can see the Milky Way like this. But I must say that I was never as much touched as when I was looking at the stars, being with local people and seeing the stars from, for example, a girl in Mongolia with the local people, being really under the three-dimensional sky and feeling part of it all, and hearing the donkeys and the crickets in Africa while people were singing. And this is where you could really feel this cosmic connection. And I felt it very strongly when I was in places, of course, where there's not much artificial light, and also in Africa. And that made me to do, next to my scientific career, to also do projects, art projects, and also project into cultural astronomy. So these are some artworks, but into cultural astronomy in different places, because seeing the night sky from these places also got, of course, it gets you talking to people, and you can exchange, because we're all under the same sky, and people see the sky in a way, and they of course, every constellation, every star, the moon, they have their meaning for people. And in that way, I did some cultural astronomy project over the last years. And this was viewing a solar eclipse, a total solar eclipse from the Gobi Altai Desert in Mongolia, in Western Mongolia, where we also visited a shaman who had his own explanation for the phenomenon. He had his prescriptions on how to behave. And we were also there with our telescopes and our thermometers and whatever, our CCD cameras, to measure the actual eclipse. But it was really special to have these two experiences of the phenomenon to be next to each other, because in the end, when you're looking at a total solar eclipse, has anyone seen one? Totality? Yeah, 1999 here in Europe. Yeah. And did you see totality? Here it was not total. It was total in the south of Belgium. Yeah. And the weather was not optimal, but yeah, for me that was my first one, but I saw it from Hungary, where it was total, and it was August 11th, 1999. And I had known about it for a long time, because I was already bitten by astronomy as a kid. And then I was so looking forward to seeing it. And then I saw it, and it was even better than I had expected, because it's just really, it's a mind-boggling phenomenon where you really feel that you're part of a cosmic clockwork. And you spoke about the Western clock time, which is our time perception and our way of measuring time. But when you're in the shadow of the moon, experiencing a solar eclipse, you notice that you're part of a cosmic time. And so, that really got me hooked on cultural astronomy. So I got to do projects, set them up in collaboration with friends. And in the meantime, I had already traveled to Africa a few times. And I did a project during the International Year of Astronomy, in which we brought 80 small build-it-yourself telescopes in a car, in the back of a car, through to local villages, and talking to local villagers, giving the small telescopes, setting them up, looking at the sky. But the main goal of the project was actually to hear how they experience celestial phenomena, and what for them mean, for example, the moon, certain constellations, what kind of stories they have about it. So using these telescopes, and also pictures of the moon and Earthrise over the moon as a starting point for the conversations. We had many conversations with local people, and learned a lot about, for example, how they see the constellations, what they mean, the the names, and every culture has this. This was for the Fulani culture in West Africa, border of Senegal and Mauritania. And yeah, actually that project was so fruitful that it led to many projects following that. This slide just illustrates that we are all under one sky. But the spin-off of this project led to a lot of outreach, education and art projects in Africa, for example, at the Biennale in Dakar, but also elsewhere where we would work with children, do workshops about celestial phenomena, at the same time teaching, doing science communication, also making music, but bringing this science to a larger audience in a non-conventional way. So typically through art projects. Because I feel that's really my mission, to make people look up and consider their place in the cosmos. And so for this Galileo in Senegal project, it led to many other spin-offs. One of them was that I got to collaborate on an exhibition in the Smithsonian Museum of African Art in Washington, D.C. They had this show called African Cosmos Stellar Arts, in which they brought together artists, contemporary and also artworks from before, all related to the cosmos. And I had the privilege of being a scientific advisor for the educational parts. And I wrote a chapter in the book on this experience doing cultural astronomy projects, specifically in Senegal. And yeah, some things that we learned by just talking to people was, for example, if you don't have artificial light, then you're very aware of the phases of the moon. If there's no moon, then it's really dark. You don't really go out because they say that there would be a jinn walking around. Whereas when there's moon, then you have people doing wrestling contests or people are much more socially active. They have these songs about the night sky, about there being many stars in the sky when the herder is a hare, and when it's a hyena, you have little stars in the sky. So they explain the phenomenon that we explain in a scientific way through these stories. And I just got to see that this exchange of stories really also lowers the walls between people, that we can talk about something that's beyond us and above us, and that we all try to understand. So without saying, oh, this is what science says, rather saying, oh, when we see a shooting star, it's a good sign, but when you see a shooting star, you're actually scared because it's something that usually announces the death of an important person. So people have different interpretations of the same phenomenon that we now also scientifically can explain. And I think that's something that would fit into the time machine as well, have workshops in which people can share their own cultural stories. And that's what I did, for example, at the Biennale, have people from different ethnic origins talk about this. And somehow that sparks a lot of creativity, visual arts, poetry, etc., just by bringing people together around this topic that's actually beyond us and above us. And I think we can do that with a supernova and just with the cosmic perspective. So I don't know what the time is. I also can talk a little bit more about these sounds if you want. So just because we will use sounds in the installation, the sounds that we will use are actually based on light, because light is the messenger through which we get information about what's going on in the cosmos. Most of it is through light. Now we also have gravitational waves. And as humans, we only see a very small part of the spectrum. We only see basically the light in which the sun emits most. So it's very dependent on the sun. The way we perceive is very dependent on our cosmic origin as well. And yeah, what we will introduce in the project are sounds of stars. Helena has mentioned that the project has several people. There is one sound artist as well, Paul, who is a drummer, and so we will integrate the star sounds with the drumming as well. These stars that can go supernova, that can be the cosmic origin. And yeah, stars are building blocks of the cosmos. They're surrounded by planets. We are on one planet, Earth, but it's just one of them. Our moon is a very important part of what we see in the night sky. We have many moons in our solar system. I think what always comes up when I talk about this is the question, are we alone? So that's something that we could also consider bringing in, because I think it's important to just break the walls between people. And if you look at colonial history and how things have been, and we want to show this in a time machine, what we want to do is also go back to the cosmic origin and also take an alternative cosmology and an alternative way of looking at us as humans. There's a whole lot of astrophysics that could be explained, and talking about our position in a galaxy, considering that our galaxy is just one of many galaxies, because on this picture what you see, each blurry dot is a galaxy which each contains 200 billion stars. So we are just living on one star in one of such galaxies. So just the thought that this amount of stars in our universe is bigger than the amounts of grains of salt in the Sahara and other deserts and beaches together. So I think the cosmology, what we want to do is talk about different cosmologies, bring stories in, but also to also give some science as well, do some science communication at the same time, and bring people together around this. I have some more star sounds that I could show. Yes, yeah, okay. So, yeah, I often show this quote because when talking about these cosmologies, they all seem very imaginative. They all seem very far-fetched sometimes. But if we look at what science shows us nowadays of how the universe is actually working, and if you think about concepts like dark matter, dark energy, which have the word dark inside because we actually don't really fully understand what it is, then this quote is very appropriate. And that's why I think the value of these mythologies is also very, very, is huge. Okay. Now I want to have some sounds. So what I do when I record stars, these stars are giant spheres of gas. And actually, if you look at our sun, of course, it's much, much bigger than Earth. It's just an average star. But many stars, they live super long. I told you that our sun is already almost 5 billion years old. Most stars live millions to billions of years. And if you then think about our presence on a planet, looking at the stars is just a blink for a star. And in some phases of their very long lives, stars can become unstable. Just like humans, stars can have these periods where they're a bit unstable. And when they are, they vibrate, they start pulsating. And so they have these vibrations, basically sound waves, going through their interior. And you have these sound waves ringing It's a bit like, yeah, if I hit the table or I hit the chair, it sounds differently. The stars also ring, just like every instrument sounds differently. The stars, because they consist of matter, they can have acoustic waves, sound waves, and they will have a sound. Even though we cannot directly see the sounds, but these sounds are with physics we can describe them, just in the same way as we describe the sounds of musical instruments. But of course, stars are far away. The cosmos is mostly empty, and sounds need a medium to be transported. You can hear me because of the air in this room. In the cosmos, there's not much air. Most of it is vacuum, it's totally empty. So sound waves are just blocked. They're actually captured. They're trapped inside the stars. Yet we can perceive that there are sound waves. We cannot hear them, but we can actually see them. And so what we do is we record the sound of stars by recording their variations. Because when a star pulsates, when it vibrates, you can see it as the star contracting and expanding. So it shrinks and it expands. It's a bit like a breathing ball. And when it contracts, it gets hotter and hence it gets brighter. So the brightness goes up. Then it goes back to the mean state and then it expands, it gets cooler and the brightness goes down. So you have this variation in brightness that you can perceive if you follow a star for weeks or months or years. So you can actually record these brightness variations with cameras attached to telescopes, or even if you know which stars to look at, you can even see it with your naked eye, that these stars are actually vibrating. And if you do that and you record these variations, you can go back from the light that changed to the sound that made the light change. It's a little bit like you have an African drum and you hit it. If you close your ears, you will see the drum move. We will actually, what we do is we see the star move, we see it get brighter and dimmer, and then we go back from the movement to the sound. So we use the light to get back to the sound. The stars are vibrating, but usually they're very slow because they're gigantic. If you compare the sound of a double bass to a violin, the double bass has a lower pitch. The stars are so big that they vibrate maybe once every few hours or days or months. So it takes a long time, which means that with our ears, we would not be able to hear it because we don't hear such low pitches. So what we do is we speed up the sounds. We basically transpose the sound to a higher register that we can hear. And what you then hear are the actual timbres, the actual specific sound qualities of the stars, not exactly the pitch, because the pitch we have moved it up, but the timbre. And so that's what you keep. And this, for example, is the sound of our sun. Which is just a giant sphere of gas, which also has these vibrations that we, because we're quite close, we manage to record very well. Now, this is a model of what we call a red giant, and these are stars that are much bigger than the sun. Our sun will swell up in 5 billion years to become a red giant, and then the sound will change. And so this is the sound of a red giant that we recorded a few years ago. Then even later, the core of the sun will shrink to become a white dwarf. And then again, it will vibrate a bit. These are all different types of stars. For example, this white dwarf, it's very, very dense. So if you scoop up a handful of material, it weighs as much as a herd of elephants. It's super dense material. And every star is different. Every star is different, just as every human, but you have classes, just like you have, you know, the young girls, the old men, you have stars that are different, and they all have their own. follow them. But from the sound, we get information about what, how are they built. Yeah, analysis data that you see here is a cluster are visibly vibrating, and then the sound is also sped up. So these are some examples of some stars. We also have some famous stars that you can see with the naked eye. And so the idea is to integrate them into the time machine and make the link with our stellar origins. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if there's any questions. So I have a project called Astro Sounds that specifically is about these star sounds, that bridges these sounds, that wants to make people listen to the stars as well. So the idea could also be to build that into the into the project, because I'm convinced that we can learn a lot more from scientific data if we use more than one sense as well. If you don't only use your sight, if you use at the same time the auditory channel, maybe even other senses. So that's also something that could be built in, to do this multi-sensory exploration.